What's up guys, it's Kelly, and today I've got sort of a nail polish 101 video and also a nail art video. It's kind of a fusion going on today. We're actually going to be going over 6 different ways that you can do gradient nail art. And this is something that I've actually wanted to do for a while now. I did a video years ago, nail polish 101, on like the ultimate guide to how to do a gradient on your nails. And I wanted to take that a little bit further. So if you guys don't know anything about how to do a gradient, I do recommend checking out that video first because I go over all the basics. But yeah, today we're going to be taking it a step further and I'm going to show you all the different types of gradients that you can do on your nail. Obviously this is not a comprehensive list, but these are like the standard ones that you can do. If you guys enjoy this, we can definitely play with more different types of gradients in a future video, but I figured you guys should know all the basics. So before we get into these 6 different gradients, let's talk about the tools that you're going to need. So obviously the first thing that you need is at least 2 nail polishes to actually gradient on your nails. And these don't specifically have to be creams. You could do these with metallics, you could do these with holo, you could do these with shimmers. If you're just starting out, using a linear holo or using a cream nail polish is probably going to be the easiest for blending. And I generally recommend that you use the same finish for all of your polishes when you're first starting out. Obviously down the line, once you get a little bit more practice, you can get into blending like holo into creams or shimmers into glitters, that kind of thing. But when you're first starting out, I definitely recommend just sticking to the same finish for all of the polishes. Next, you will need a cosmetic sponge for doing your gradient. I just use these little face wedge sponges. I buy them in bulk either on Amazon or at Walmart. They're super cheap and they're super easy to use for nails. You don't have to get them wet. I prefer to use mine dry. I know there are some people that swear by using wet sponges. Personally, I keep mine dry and I think that gives me the best gradient. And then the third thing is optional. If you want, you can use some sort of barrier around your nails to protect your skin. Now, honestly, you don't need something like this. If you want, you can just get it on your skin and then you can clean that off with acetone, but it definitely gets a little bit messy. So you can either use liquid latex, which is a really popular option, or you can use Scotch tape. You can even use something like Elmer's glue, and that will protect the skin around your nails. And then when you peel it off, it leaves you with clean skin. For this video, I actually wanted to try these latex-free nail protectors. So I got these from Maniology. They're also available on Amazon, so I'll link that down below if you guys want to check it out. This was my first time using them, and I have to say, this is a huge game changer for me. I'm generally a little shy about getting too close to my cuticle area just because I have kind of deep set nail beds, so that's always a struggle. I always have to do extra cleanup around there, but with these it ended up being a lot easier. But again, it's just personal preference. You don't even have to use anything, but if you want to make cleanup a little bit easier on yourself, just something to go around your nail to protect them definitely goes a long way. And then the last thing you need is top coat. Using a glossy top coat over your gradient always, to me, helps kind of blend the colors together and smooths everything out. And obviously you want your manicure to last, so using top coat will help smooth out your design, make it last longer, and also protect it from getting messed up. Now that we've got our tools, let's just get into the 6 different ways that you can gradient your nails. So the first way in my mind is the #1 absolute most popular standard way to do your gradient, and that is the horizontal gradient. At the base of your nail where the cuticle is, you're going in with one color and then it fades into another color. It doesn't have to just be 2 colors. You can do 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you can fit on your nails. The most I've ever done, I have pretty short nails, is 5 very thin strips of color, but whatever you can fit onto your nails, doing a horizontal gradient is the most popular way that I see gradients done all the time. It's super easy. Basically, you just take your sponge, you paint on your strips of color slightly overlapping, and then you just sponge that onto your nail. Super basic stuff, very easy to do. So I feel like whenever people think of gradients, that's the way that they think of, and I always see so many gorgeous gradients like this. But I feel like that was kind of the inspiration for this video, because I feel like all of the other gradient types people really forget about. So that's why I wanted to share with you guys some of the others. So yeah, let's move on to #2. All right, so the second way to do your gradient is the vertical gradient, and there's a couple different ways that you can do this. So the easiest way to do it would be fading from one color across the nail into another color, and it's really cool because depending on how you shift your nails, you're gonna see one side one color and then the other side another color. Or you can do it where you have one color down the center and then a different color on either side of the nail, so it almost creates this like 3-dimensional effect. Either way, it's a super cool option, and again, you can use as many colors as you want or as will fit on your nails. The way that I like to do this You can always paint the horizontal stripes on your sponge and just hold it sideways and do it. But I have to tell you, whatever gradient I am doing, I have to paint it onto the sponge where the thick part of the sponge goes up to my cuticle, because otherwise I will 100% forget what angle or what direction I was doing it in, and I will always do a horizontal gradient. So I like to paint 2 vertical stripes, obviously if you're just doing 2 colors, and then I just sponge that onto my nails. It's also really easy because you don't have to worry about trying to remember which direction you did it in, because I always know when I am doing a gradient, the fat part of the sponge is going to be at the part of my nail where it meets the cuticle and the skin. And then if you're doing the type of gradient that has a color on either side and then a separate color in the middle, you're just doing the same thing, just basically painting on 1 vertical stripe and then painting on the colors on either side and then just sponging that on. So again, super simple, and this is probably the second most popular, but still something that I feel like a lot of people don't really attempt. So if you do a lot of horizontal gradients, I definitely recommend trying a vertical. It's the same difficulty level, you're just doing a different direction. Okay, the number 3 way, as you may have guessed already, is the diagonal gradient. This one's actually super fun. Again, you can just paint on your horizontal lines and then put your nails at an angle, but especially with the diagonal gradient, you want to be very careful that you're doing the same angle for every layer of sponging you're doing. Now for me, I usually like to do 2 to 3 layers of my sponged on color just to get a nice seamless gradient. So for me, it really doesn't make any sense to hold it at a certain angle because I'm going to forget the exact degree of angle that I'm doing it. So basically what I like to do is, again, looking at the fat part of the sponge, I'm just going to be painting on my diagonal lines. And then it also makes it a lot easier when you're doing across your nails. You want to make sure that all of your nails are at the same angle. So if you are holding your sponge the exact same way each time, it's definitely a lot easier to remember if your polish is at a diagonal but your sponge is straight up and down. This is a really cool way for people with shorter nails to fit on more colors. So if you're a person who can really only fit 2 colors in a gradient on your nails, doing a diagonal kind of gives you the opportunity to try adding more colors in, and you can just fit more onto your nail. So the next 2 methods are a little bit more advanced. Number 4 is the radial gradient. This is actually something I've only done a few times before, and to be honest, I haven't totally mastered it yet. I think a part of it is that my nails are really small, so it's hard for me to get the radial gradient just right, but I feel like it's definitely a really cool option, especially as a base for if you're doing some kind of really cool stamping manicure or something where it's like a spotlight on a certain portion of your nail. I think this is a really cool option for that. So basically what that is just a circular gradient. So the way that I like to do this on the sponge is I will literally just draw a bullseye. So starting with kind of the center of the sponge, I'll put on my first color and then I'll start to do rings around that first color with the others. And this is a little bit tricky because of 2 reasons. One, you want to make sure that you are putting your sponge in the exact same place every time, otherwise you're going to mess up that radial gradient. And 2, when you're reapplying for your second and third layers, you want to make sure that you are still using the same polish in the same area, and it's kind of hard to draw a circle on the sponge. So definitely a tricky one, something I'm going to be working more on to master because I think it really creates this awesome effect. But yeah, I would say it's definitely an advanced technique. The number 5 way to do a gradient is the splotchy gradient, and this one I would say is like intermediate. It's not exactly advanced because it's not an exact science, but you do want to be a little bit particular about where you are sponging on. So this one is actually really fun, and it kind of creates this sort of tie-dyed effect. It's not exactly a gradient where one color fades into the other, but it's more like you have a bunch of different colors that gradually fade into each other. And again, you can do this with as many colors as you want or can fit onto your nail, but basically you just take your bottle brush and you just pop on little random dots across the sponge, and then you just sponge that onto your nail, and like I said, it creates this sort of tie-dye effect. This is another thing that I like to do for backgrounds to nail art, but you can definitely also wear it on its own. I think this type of look really goes well with cream polishes. All of the ones that I'm going over, you can kind of use whatever finish you want, but this one, it almost looks a little too splotchy when I try it with non-cream polishes. So if you're just getting started, I recommend at least starting with creams and then starting to experiment with more different types of finishes, because you definitely want to keep a separation of color. And like I said, you do need to be a little particular about where you are sponging it on, because if you move the sponge around too much, you're going to lose those different areas of color. And then the final way to do a gradient, number 6, arguably the most easy, is the glitter gradient. So this one is different from all of the rest. For me, I don't normally need to use a protector on my nails because this one is a very precise sort of placement. So instead of working with the thick part of the sponge, I usually like to use the thin tip. So I'll just actually paint my base color on. I will take the little tip of the sponge and then I paint some of my glitter on there, and then I slowly sponge from the free edge of my nail up towards that cuticle, and that's how I create a glitter gradient. I actually have a bunch of videos on glitter gradients if you guys want to see different examples, but it's just a super easy way to create a gradient without having to do a lot of work, use up a lot of polish. You know, when you're doing gradients, you want your sponge to be super saturated, but when you're working with glitter, you only want it to saturate enough that the glitter that you're using will just go onto your nail, and then the sponge absorbs all of that excess clear base. So it's really easy. This is something that I do for almost every wedding that I go to. I like to have a simple glitter gradient, and it's also really fun for like special occasions. It's always a New Year's manicure that I do as well. It's just a really easy way to create that gradient design without like making a huge mess and, you know, having to do the whole like sponging on multiple colors, multiple layers, because you really just generally need to do 1 or 2 layers of that. So yeah, those are 6 different ways to do a gradient. And like I said, if you guys want to see more funky ways to do gradients, these are all like the standard ways, but there are more advanced techniques that maybe we could get into in the future if you guys want to see a sequel to this video. But yeah, I would love to hear from you guys. Which of these 6 gradient types is your favorite? Have you tried any of them? Have you tried all of them? And if you have, which one do you think is the hardest? Because personally, I feel like that radial gradient gets me every time. But yeah, let me know in the comments. We can chat about it. If you enjoy my Nail Polish 101 videos, please give this one a thumbs up. It lets me know I'm doing a good job. And if you have any requests for other Nail Polish 101 videos that you want to see, or nail art techniques that you want me to go over, I am always happy to do that, so just let me know that in the comments as well. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. I put out new videos every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. And that's it, so I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. Okay, fun facts. Let's see what we got. Let me check my handy dandy list of fun fact questions. Oh, this is a good one. Okay, today's fun fact question comes from Patreon supporter Autumn, and Autumn wants to know, do you have a favorite word or one that you really like for any reason at all? Yes, I do, and it's funny you should ask because I never thought, well actually I have told people before, but I never thought that I would mention it on this channel. But yes, my favorite word, like the one that comes to mind, there are words that I think are pretty, but the one that comes to mind for me is mitigate. So I'll just write it right here because I know not all of you guys are native English speakers. So the reason I like this word is not because of its definition. I just like the way that it sounds. First of all, mitigate is cool. And second of all, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of this made up language. Where I live, we used to call it gibberish. I know there's like a bunch of different ways that people call it, but when it's when you add ig to each word. So yeah, so the word mitigate is a word already, but it's also the gibberish word for mate, which I just feel like is really funny. So I've always liked the word mitigate because I used to always be like, mitigate? Like, are you saying mate or are you saying mitigate? So this probably makes no sense to the majority of you guys, but yeah. So I just like that word because it reminds me of like the childhood nostalgia of speaking gibberish. So yeah, if you guys spoke that language, you can also let me know that in the comments because I'm curious like what percentage of people used to, actually now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of want to do a poll. So maybe I'll put on Twitter a little poll and be like, how many of you guys spoke this made up language when you were kids? So yeah, we'll figure it out. All right, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.